Houston and Tennessee are very familiar in a lot of ways, just met to end last season, but all the new faces are the story of this Players Era matchup.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is a crossover Locked On Coogs and Locked On Vols. I'm Locked On Coogs Park Andrews, joined by Eric Cain of Locked On Vols. And I usually ask some sort of a weird food question like that to open Eric. But honestly, with this thing being in Vegas, what's your vice at Vegas? Are you a craps table guy? Are you a roulette guy?
It used to be the books, the sports books, but I mean, of course, we can do that from the palm of our hands now. I'd probably say craps.
Fair enough. Tell us in the comments down below what yours is as well. Today's bonus show is brought to you by FanDuel. So more fun on that sportsbook fun later. Eric, these two teams are familiar with each other, and Barnes and Sampson go back a long ways, like to high school basketball in North Carolina, kind of long ways. But none of that matters when Nate Ament is just this tremendous freshman phenom. Houston's got a couple of their own. Houston folks have been dialed into this freshman class for a long time, but I don't know if they know a lot about who Nate Ament is. What does this guy bring to the table that's different from last year's Elite Eight team?
Well, I mean, he's for the longest time, and you're very familiar with Rick Barnes, and I know Sampson's primarily been the same way throughout his career. It's defense. And last couple of years, Tennessee's gone out to the portal and got a guy, and Dalton Connect and Chaz Lanier, and they've been go get buckets, go scoring, and kind of leading that way. He's recruited at a high level. I'm not trying to act like he hasn't. He has never recruited like this. Like Nate Ament could be a lottery pick. He is a option one scorer. Plays the three, can spread things out. He can obviously knock down the three. He had, I think it was 3 or 4 3-pointers in their first game against Rutgers. He can drive to the basket, go to the block. He picks up contact. He gets to the charity stripe, and he knocks those down over there. He's improving defensively, but long, widespread, athletic. He's kind of got the total package. I mean, he was the number, I want to say 2 player in the class. I mean, he was obviously a 5-star, so he's got a really, really bright future. And again, he's learning how to play defense the way Rick Barnes wants him to play defense. But he's going to either lead Tennessee in scoring, or he's going to be right there with Ja'Kobi Gillespie, the point guard from Maryland, every single game. It's been those two guys. They're the scorers, and then you're just kind of figuring it out around them. So he's been really, really cool to watch, and he's only going to get better.
Consensus faster recruit. You mentioned Barnes pulled him out of. He was looking at Duke, Kentucky, Calipari got to Arkansas and had this guys right away. I'm really interested to see this matchup with Chris Cenac. Chris is the big man at Houston, a 6'10" projected lottery pick as well. And honestly was like right behind Nate Ament in most rankings. No. And so Nate has had the edge there. And I wonder where that, chip on the shoulder kind of thing comes into play. One thing I think helps Houston this matchup is that their freshmen have been through a test. They played in Birmingham, so not quite on the road at Auburn, but they played Auburn and Birmingham. They just played a tough matchup against Syracuse in the first round of this Players Era thing. I don't mean to belittle Rutgers, but that's not quite the same thing. What are you looking to get out of Tennessee in this first test of sorts? Because I think Tennessee's going to have a strong year almost regardless of how Tuesday goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee had some really, physical and really challenging exhibitions. Rick Barnes done a really good job scheduling those the last couple of years. Michigan State, one of them. Duke, Duke was on ESPN at Thompson Bowling at the Food City Center, sold out crowd like during the middle of football season on a Sunday night. I don't know if it was sold out, but it was big arena. But it was pretty incredible to see. And so they were challenged in the preseason. But you're right. I mean, to start the season off, they played the Mercers, the North Floridas, the Northern Kentuckys, and Rick Barnes' schedule is really, really tough. But this first little strand of games before you get in the meat of it haven't really been challenged yet. So I mean, Tennessee's still trying to figure out kind of who they are. They're going to play a lot of guys. I think 12 played against Rutgers earlier today in the first game. Obviously, that rotation is going to be trimmed down some, but very much still in the early phases of trying to figure out which combinations work best, who works best with everybody. Can you flip a guy from the 3 to the 2 or vice versa, stuff like that. But I mean, you're going to get a team that's led primarily by Ja'Kobi Gillespie and Nate Ament, and we just spoke on. Those two guys are going to score a lot. They're going to shoot a lot. Felix Akpara is a nice rim protector. Of course, he played on the team last year in that matchup there late in the tournament. You got Kate Phillips that can do a little bit of everything down low. I can bump out to the block. Amari Abram, one of the impact transfers, is playing that 2 guard. He's switching out with Ethan Berg, who was also, an acquisition from over the offseason. Bishop Boswell just returned to action today. He's missed the last 3 games, and he's a sophomore, but kind of been waiting his turn, more of a defensive-minded guard, and you can be that in a lineup that features Ja'Kobi Gillespie and Nate Ament. And so I think that's what Rick Barnes really likes about Bishop Boswell there at the 2. So, again, just trying to feel yourself out, trying to continue to figure out kind of what combinations work best and trying to get as much experience as you can before, things really heat up. And, of course, you got SEC play right around the corner. This will be a great challenge. And, going up against a team with the defensive prowess as Houston year in and year out with some of the McDonald's All-Americans and all that, it's going to be a good show.
I think they're really a fun game, frankly. Close games are fun. You want to win them, obviously, but that's part of the point of playing in these in November is to have the fun exhibition. Not an exhibition; it's a pre-conference play, right? I do think Ament adds an interesting layer because last year Houston kind of came out at almost like a different speed in their matchup in the Elite Eight. And then ultimately, like Tennessee kind of kept it even and even clawed into that lead a little bit over the course of the game. But that gut punch in the first 10 minutes was shocking. I think Ament adds a layer to them where that probably won't shock Tennessee out the gates, both because of that last season, because of the firepower of their own this season. Do you see like Akpara or Estrella or whoever, do you see them play off of that differently? Are they playing better right now in the end of the season on, not to dwell on that Elite Eight game, but like that is the most recent touch point?
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee has gone through lulls offensively. I mean, even when you had Dalton Connect, even when you had Chaz Lanier, it was way worse without those guys, because Tennessee's fielded a team where you've had good players, but you didn't have a guy that can go and just get a bucket and create on his own and all that. And it was really bad then. But I mean, basketball teams that go through slumps, they go through runs, spurts during the middle of games and all that. It's just that specific game in the Elite Eight. I mean, it was over. Like, it was over before it started, and it's unfortunate, for Tennessee because it was a really good ball club. Again, more offensive minded, but Rick Barnes will yank you off the court if you're not doing what he wants to defensively. JP Estrella is an interesting one as well. I didn't mention him earlier. He played big-time minutes in the Elite Eight matchup against Purdue 2 years ago, missed all of last year with a hurt foot, came back, started the season off well, and had a couple of double-doubles and was kind of like, okay, well, man, he's going to give Tennessee something Tennessee hasn't had in the front court, along with Jalen Carey from Vanderbilt, the ability to play inside out a little bit. I mean, you're going to run through Ja'Kobi Gillespie and Nate Ament, but the ability to play inside out if you want to. Tennessee hasn't done that since Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield were here. And then he missed the last couple of games, but he's back. He played earlier today. Almost 7 foot. He's so athletic, has made a couple of threes already this year, but he is a physical presence. And JP Estrella, again, just another option down there in the blocks where you've got Felix Akpara, and he'll get a couple alley-oop dunks and everything, but he's more of a rim protector. He's more in there for defense, and so there's not a whole lot of offense there. It's just kind of a different look. It's neat. Tennessee fans are adjusting and liking it, but again, like, you have a point guard in Ja'Kobi Gillespie that's going to take 20 to 22 shots in a basketball game. And Zakai Ziegler was great. He certainly didn't do that.
Not the same thing. Ziegler's a lot of fun. Not the same thing at all. Yeah. That's Eric Cain. I'm Parker Angel in this crossover portion of Locked On Coogs and Locked On Vols. We both have a couple private schools in football we'd like to beat this weekend. We got Baylor. Y'all got Vanderbilt. Let's take it to them for a second, right? Anyway, thank you all for tuning in to this one. Thanks to Eric for crossing over for a little bit. Again, in a busy week over the Vols. Go check him out as well. But before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than when the official sports betting partner of the NBA, FanDuel. Look, basketball, college football, pro football, hockey, whatever you're in on, FanDuel is too. Get on the action today. Even if you missed the start of a game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel's got live bets on everything who's going to score next to the big fourth quarter comeback. You can even combine your bets into a live game, same game parlay for shots at bigger payout. Keeps every game way more exciting. especially when your team is making that late fourth quarter push. Right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 and bonus bets your first $5 bet hits. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Pro Ranger locked on Coogs here. Now it's just me solo. Eric had to chime in for a second on the Tennessee Volunteers. I could keep going about this game. I love, love, love all of the lore around Sampson, Rick Barnes, their days at Texas and Oklahoma, but the days back in North Carolina as well. Going back to like their high school days, North Carolina, like these two guys are cut from the same cloth, and that's the reason that these games can be so much fun. I don't want last year's what turned into a fairly lopsided for parts of it game between Houston and Tennessee in the Elite Eight to like skew how similar in DNA these two coaches are when it comes to what they think about basketball, right? I don't think it's any accident either that both teams are going to be looking to like center a lot of what they're doing around the flexibility, positional flexibility of star freshman stretch fours that are going to be in the lottery of next year's NBA draft. Now, we know on Monday night that Sampson sat Chris Cenac for large stretches of the game, presumably because of things he was not happy with. Now, I would point out that Cenac had 12 rebounds and I thought was doing okay defensively, not his best showing defensively, but he was having trouble in the perimeter. And Nate Ament may honestly make that worse for him. Nate Ament's listed at 6'10", listed 205, and is a similar kind of prospect. It wouldn't listen. This is me putting out conjecture. This is not reporting. They would never say this, and they certainly have never. If you told me, if a birdie told me, if someone mentioned that Chris Cenac had this game with Tennessee and Nate Ament circled on his calendar and was maybe looking past Syracuse or something, or looking past Ryder or whomever to get to this point, I would totally buy it. This is the kind of game that he is looking at because is a like they've been telling me for my entire life, my entire since I got ranked in whatever grade. I think he got ranked as a sophomore. They've been telling me that kid's better than me, and I'm finally gonna get to show everyone on national television that ain't it, right? Like I could totally see that. I also think it's particularly poignant because they're going to actually cover each other. And if you look at the starting lines for both teams, both play the power forward spot. They both do inside stuff, both do outside stuff, both shoot the three ball. Nate Ament may be a little bit wigglier. That was weird. Maybe a little bit wigglier passing, or Nate Ament be a little bit wigglier dribbling the basketball, where Chris Cenac, I would say, is probably a better passer and playmaker of the two. I like Cenac has more like strength to him. I think he rebounds better inside. Ament's probably a little bit longer, honestly, like a hair longer. And I think that yin and yang of these two make this a fun matchup. This could be I don't mean to make this out to be like Bird and Magic. They just play each other here. You see them again in March. You see these guys play each other against a lot in the NBA. Like this could be the start of something fun. And I don't think that gets lost on either fan base or either player. I think the reason Houston wins this game is because they win every other matchup. And I don't mean to say they don't win the Nate Ament, Chris Cenac matchup. I just mean to say that I think they got him beat there. Now, Ja'Kobi Gillespie is good. And I don't mean to say what I'm about to say in a way that slights what he did at Maryland, or he was an all-everything guy at Belmont before that, right? I mean, like, put Belmont on people's TVs in March Madness, kind of all that, right? Ja'Kobi Gillespie is good. I think Zakai Ziegler is better, and we saw what Sampson and company drew up for Zakai Ziegler last year, right? Like it took him out of the game, and in a way that Sampson and company like to cut off the head of the snake and make you play with one hand tied behind your back. I'd imagine they got some plans for Ja'Kobi Gillespie because as much fun as Nate Ament is, Gillespie's the one running the offense, right? And so what I imagine to see happening in this game is a lot of the same kind of things they did to Ziegler, where they are trapping a smaller guard on every ball screen, forcing him into dribble drive actions. But then those dribble drive actions are honestly not in his best interest because the head-to-head matchup with him is a 6'4" Miles Suzanne. And frankly, the more you see Kingston Flemings play, the more that 6'3" sounds like crap. That dude's closer to 6'5" than 6'3". I'm telling you right now. And these big guards Houston's got, they don't have the 6'8" wing guys. I mean, they have Cenac, and he's more of a power forward. They don't have those, and they don't have a whole lot of 7-footer type guys either, right? But their guards go 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". And that is, when you look at a listed 6-foot Ja'Kobi Gillespie, I think going to be to his detriment. And this is really more about, like, I thought more highly of Zakai Ziegler, and not because I don't think highly of Ja'Kobi Gillespie. I just think that Houston's going to be set for that. What I think is going to be intriguing after seeing, honestly, after seeing JoJo Tugler struggle at moments on Monday evening, is what does JoJo Tugler do with Felix Akpara, the I want to say 7-footer. I guess he listed 6'11", Nigerian in the front court for them. Now Akpara played at Ohio State for a number of years, but was on the Tennessee team last year. When you pull up that game log series from last year, I don't know that I don't know that it's a fair statement on his potential output. He did have 9 rebounds and a couple blocks. He only played a handful of minutes. Only had a couple baskets. He's not. I guess he played almost 30 minutes. It's not that he can't match up with JoJo Tugler in my head, though. It's that the advantage Houston, I would have thought, had is that Tugler's more of an offensive threat than Akpara is, and so Akpara would have to stay more connected to Tugler defensively than Tugler will on the inverse, right? Now, that being said, if Tugler plays on offense as he did on Monday night, or as he has in a couple of games thus far this year for Houston, maybe I'm wrong on that, right? Maybe that shift doesn't come. That could all be the case. I do think it's nice to see that Manuel Sharp got his action back. I also think Kingston Fleming shows back up in a big way in this one. I don't think he can stay down for long. I think that this is the kind of game that you see Houston kind of wake back up from it. And they will never say they're looking forward to Tennessee, but I think Tennessee presently being a much more highly touted team. I mean, in the most recent AP poll, I guess they came in at 20th. I kind of thought they were going to move up in the world. They're 5-0. They haven't played anyone of note. I guess Rice was the best team they've played, probably. And they won that game by 25, right? As you look at Tennessee, they're not like a bunch of world beaters. But I do think that this Tennessee team, they haven't played a bunch of world beaters, I should say. I do think this Tennessee team is good. And if you told me this Tennessee team was a top Sweet 16 kind of contender, or even, depending on the draw, the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 kind of contender, I would buy it. I'd probably buy Barnes in that defense whenever they did that. Right now, I just think that Houston does all those things better. And I think that this is a game that could be 68-58. FanDuel, or over at FanDuel, best sports we get involved with. They've got it at a 3.5 point spread in Houston's favor. Over-under's low. I just feel like Houston's going to be more ready for this one. I don't mean that as a denigration on who's got what scout on the staff. I know they divide up who's got what scout on the staff or whatever and all that. I just feel like Sampson's usually ready for Barnes. I just feel like these guys know what the other program's trying to do. Returning 3 starters for Houston's important in this one. Even with the newness that Eric pointed out, I think that that's just not necessarily always a positive. And so we'll talk about that in a second. I do think this is the biggest draw in Vegas, though. And I'll talk about what that means for Houston in just 1 second. Locked on Coogs, Parker Ainsworth here. Locked on Podcast, #1 podcast network in the world for sports. And I want to talk about, when covering sports, how it's great that Houston gets Tennessee in this. And I understand there are other matchups that might have even been bigger. I do wish, and maybe it's because it's played out. Maybe it's because there's a bunch of Texas Oklahoma backstory that I didn't watch all the time because I wasn't watching all of those basketball games once upon a time. I do feel like there could have been a whole weekend long lead up to Tuesday night's game about Barnes, Sampson, their relationship, their friendship, their respect for one another, dating back so far, right? I think that could have been, and that they keep running into each other. I think is powerful, right? I also, for what it's worth, think that it's a big deal for Houston to be in what's kind of the marquee matchup of Tuesday. Like, I Kansas got a really easy draw in this thing. Notre Dame got a pretty simple draw in this thing. Like, other schools don't have a Tennessee on a Tuesday in this always, and I think that's a big deal. It kind of shows you where Houston is. They want to sell the program. I will say it actually might work against Houston in terms of winning this whole thing. Now, I'd be like, Houston, in many ways, probably shot themselves in the foot in winning this whole thing on Monday night, because this thing isn't about necessarily just wins and losses. The Players Era Invitational is a bunch of teams that could all potentially go 2-0. And then you're trying to see who wins on point differential. The cap set at 20. So you can't take more than 20 points from a single game. That way you're not encouraged to like blow someone up by 40 or whatever, right? Houston won by 4. Tennessee won theirs by over 20. And so suddenly Houston, to make up the difference, would have to now they're playing Tennessee doesn't quite work out that way, but if someone else is, potentially also going to go 2-0 and going to win both their games by like say 16 and 18, Houston's going to win their next game by 20 just to have a chance. And like, I don't think that that's necessarily wrong. I just think that's not stylistically like Houston plays low possession basketball games. They play ugly, muck it up, get it out the mud kind of basketball games. That's just who the identity of this program is and has been and will be. I don't know that makes it a worse program or not a program that can win this whole thing. And the style points that come with winning by 20, 22 points, whatever, are weird, especially when you don't all play the same caliber competition. But maybe learned a lot about Syracuse on Monday. Who knows, right? Now, Houston, Tennessee being a like primetime matchup of Tuesday night's basketball games is important. Both because it puts Houston on the stage and because it's a great test. This is kind of in a lot of ways going to be Houston's third test in 10 days. And that's what you're looking for out of these kinds of early season competitions, right? I said it on the post game. I said it going into the game. I said it in the preseason. Houston left Feast Week last year 4-3. And Houston is presently, as of the time of recording this podcast, 6-0. And that's a, dramatically different situation. They could theoretically, knock on wood, lose their next 2 games, be 6-2, and be in a better spot than they were this point a year ago. And a year ago, they were a possession from winning the national championship game, right? Like, that's where we're at in the program. So when people are like, the sky is falling, things are terrible, like, actually, they're getting put on primetime television for a chance to prove that they're better at this point than they were a year ago. And a year ago, you add 60 seconds to that clock, think the best team in the country. But anyway, that's where the program is, right? And I understand people would say, like, yeah, but they've played Towson, and yeah, they've played Lehigh. But when Towson wins the CAA and Lehigh wins the Patriot League and both end up in the tournament, what are we going to say? Right now, Look, I know that people have their thoughts about what Syracuse was and what Syracuse will be. I think they're going to be better than people realize. I tried to tell Jackson that, if you couldn't tell by the inkling of what I was trying to get between the lines there, Jackson, on our crossover for Monday, and he seemed to disagree. But you get Tennessee on Tuesday. You get another test, presumably, if you beat Tennessee, it'll be a pretty good program at some point on Wednesday. Then a week, the next game, a week from Saturday, you get Florida State. I mean, like, is Florida State world-beating Florida State? Do they have Scotty Barnes on that roster? No. Are they an ACC team that is 4-1 as the time of this recording? And had a pretty competitive game against in-state rival Florida for that one loss. Yeah, that's Florida State. And we could be sitting here talking about an undefeated team on the night of December 6th and talk about how tremendous that is to be playing that great of basketball this early in the season, how, like, we got to almost make sure we're not peaking. We could also be turning around on December 6th and saying, man, this team is 6-3. And I don't think either one ruins a chance at being cutting down nets in April. I don't think that either one of those is doing that. But I do think it's awesome to have that opportunity as Houston is, and that Houston's kind of set themselves up like this, right? They're in Birmingham playing Auburn, and it is not Milos' night, but it's Kingston's, right? They're in Las Vegas playing Syracuse, and it is not Kingston's night, but it's Emmanuel's. They're in Toyota Center on a Saturday in December, and it's not either's night, but Cenac shows up, right? Like, they've got so many tools and so many options that I don't mean to say it is a foregone conclusion. Someone will always show up, and that's why they're going to be on these nationally televised games. Arkansas in late December, or they open up conference play at Cincinnati, which could be a fun one, frankly, or whatever. All these different options, I think, add up to what makes this year's team particularly fun this early in the season. Is I don't know. There's so many different ways to win. I don't know how to predict which way they go. On Tuesday against Syracuse, I imagine it's by a defensive effort that forces a lot of turnovers, gets on transition. I think that plays into Kingston and Milos' hands, if I'm being blunt. But I could see a lot of other ways around it. I could see other ways that it goes. I could see Ament and Cenac getting a lot of one-on-one kind of baskets. I could see all kinds of things, right? Really, really encouraged by where the team is. And I'd say one thing. I was texting some guys, and I really, really think that, and I texted guys this as well. When you're up 11 with 3 minutes to go on Monday night, and Syracuse storms back and forces overtime and almost wins it in regulation and forces overtime, 98% of America still loses the game in overtime. Even with the extra couple minutes to breathe, the 3 minutes, overtime's only 5, it can ruin you. This team caught their breath, talked for a second, and went out and look, I guess they only won by 4 points, but they were in control of overtime once they got the ball tipped again. And I think that says a lot of the program too, and I'm excited to see what that says and what the response will be for this program on Tuesday night. Will JoJo be better offensively? I think so. Does Cenac stay on the floor longer because he's in rotations better? I think so. Kingston shoot the ball better. Can't shoot the ball a lot worse. Right? Like, where do those go? I think that those things go back in the Cougs' direction. Either way, we'll be here live to break down post game at Locked on Coogs. I am working with Cam against some crossover action for the Baylor Bears. That stuff will come out this week as well. It is Thanksgiving week. Everyone's got to see their families. I totally get that. I also would point out that Baylor's in like utter chaos. And so if you want to go check out what's going on with there, go check out Locked on Baylor. Want to check out more about college basketball, go check out Locked on College Basketball. So many fun things happening across college athletics. Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world, has you covered wherever you want to. And this is the Locked On Cougs, proud member of that Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Go Cougs.